Welcome to the 106th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we'll be breaking down anime that aired during the 6th week of the summer 2019 season. As always, we include timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and podcast feed if you only want to hear about one or two specific shows, since everything will be spoiled. My name is Leo, and when things are really tough and it looks like all hope is lost, I flash back to my memories of all my life experiences, and all of that leads me to believe in myself. But more importantly, to find that strength in myself to drop BEM in Midseason Cuts. Also with me are Bcom and Kat. I wonder who wrote that one.
Hello. How's it going, everybody? Oh, man, I can't wait to talk about Demon Slayer, which was the inspiration for that. So, yeah. Oh, that was a good episode. I watched it again right before we started recording today and was just as hype as when I originally watched it like a week or two ago.
Yeah.
You rewatch episodes a lot. You're weird.
Well, I don't remember shit that happened. If I haven't watched a thing for like a week, I have no idea what happened.
I've honestly, I think I've actually rewatched that episode like 6 times, or at least it ends 6 times, because it was just that cool.
Yeah, it's a cool episode.
Who wants to start off with the randomness this week? Nonsense, I mean, randomness, whatever.
Kat, why don't you start out?
I
What's
like
your
the
nonsense?
most. Okay, so I went to fucking Montreal, and that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I've seen the pictures.
I had a shit ton of fun. That one party I went to on Saturday was ridiculous. Like, it was 12 hours, and I about died, but in a good way.
You kind of sound like you're dying now.
Yeah, I can hear it in your voice.
Well, when you party for like 4 to 5 days in a row, and I did, and then like you spend the day like sightseeing like a tourist, and then you come back and you feel fine and you're stubborn, and so then you go out with your friends partying a couple days later.
Oh my god.
And you're like, this is fine. And so you get back at like 5 a.m. and sometimes your body decides, no, I hate you. And
Yeah.
no
Yeah, that's
more.
how it works.
Oh my god.
So then I woke up on Monday and I was like, am I dying? Am I dead now? Like, my throat hurt so fucking bad. And I realized, because I actually have had strep throat quite a few times in my life. Oh, spoiler alert, I had strep throat.
Hype.
Highly recommended.
Highly recommend. I mean, at least you don't have respiratory symptoms. But yeah, I've had it quite a few times. For some reason, my inner throat likes it a lot, and I just tend to get it a lot. And got it again. So I spent 3, and you know that song where it's like, I got a fever of 103.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
that's not a song when you have strep throat. It's reality.
Be Foreigner, hot-blooded.
That's reality for several days when you have strep. I literally had a fever of 103 for a couple days there.
That's rough.
I'm hot-blooded, hot-blooded.
Yep. But did I learn my lesson? No, because you know what I'm doing this weekend? Going out, even though I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Woo.
Unbelievable.
Any other cool stuff about Montreal, Canada?
Oh, I had a shit ton of cool things. So, like, I ate a lot of poutine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, like, my friends kept telling me, you should go to this place. It's this really great place. We think it's the best. I went. I was like, this is a beat up hole in the wall. This is really good food, but like maybe there's fancier stuff. And so then I went to like the best rated poutine in Montreal, and it was some shit. And then I was like, what the fuck?
So they were right.
Wow.
And I waited like an hour and a half for the really shitty stuff too. And I was like, oh, okay.
Always got to listen to the locals. They know the best.
I know.
Yeah.
I was so mad at myself. And,
honestly,
and then, of course, I came back and they were like, we told you. And I was like, fuck you.
Well, honestly, a lot of the best food is hole-in-the-wall places that you just need to talk to locals, ask about. So they'll be like, oh, go here to get this pizza slice, and shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like we went to a lot of the sushi in Montreal is absolutely amazing. I don't know how, but like I always thought I hated salmon sushi because in Indiana, the salmon is absolute crap. And I'm like, I'm not eating that. It always tastes fishy to me as sushi. But I ate some there and I was like, this is amazing. So then we went to they have all you can eat sushi places there that are like fancy.
Nice.
They're fucking fancy. All you can eat sushi places. So you sit down and they give you this like card and you write how much of each thing you want. And then they bring it all to you and you consume all of it. And then they give you another card. And you just keep going like that. Yep. And the only time that you get charged more is if you leave some.
Yeah, they hate it if you don't finish the food. They're very upset.
And so we ate so much sushi, and all my friends were sick, but I wasn't fucking sick. And I was like, well, yeah. And so then we went to visit like a lot of cool places. We went on a festival like one day where there's like a parade in the city. Oh, cool. Everyone wore cool costumes, and I took pictures with a bunch of my friends who were wearing their cool costumes, and I put those up.
Yeah, I saw
Everyone
those.
was like, what the fuck, you're colorful, and I'm like, yes. And then there's like a lot of street art in Montreal, and I didn't know that.
That's
I took
cool.
Pictures. And then the last day we did this really fancy dinner at this like super super fancy restaurant, like one of those places you go in and you're like, oh god, I'm not expensive enough for this place. That was good food, and it was a good time. And then the last day I went to the botanical gardens in Montreal, and they're really pretty too. There's like crazy there's like Chinese ones, there's like a rose garden, there's like a shade garden, this thing called the Innovation Garden, which is statues made of flowers. It was very pretty. Cool. Yeah. Would highly recommend. Sometimes, like, people speak French to you, and then you have to say English only, and then they look at you like you're a child. But most of the time, it's okay.
Oh, Quebec.
Most of the time, it's fine. Just occasionally, they'll be like, oh this bitch. Okay.
I know enough French that I could probably just like say something back to them and they would be like,
You think that, but you're wrong.
Yeah, I probably am. Also, yeah, our friend Andrew, or Frigimon Fanatic, from the Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast and Anime Radicals, he is from Montreal, and like he speaks a dialect of French that like no matter how I pronounce the fucking French word, it's wrong. He's always like, oh, that's wrong. I'm just like,
very
what?
Different. Also, people kissing you on the cheek is weird, and I never got used to it the entire time I was there.
Oh, really? Like, explain the situation. Like, how did that?
Just like greeting each
people
other.
Would be like, "It was so nice to meet you," blah blah blah, and then you'd be like, "Yeah, you too," and you'd be like, "Bye," and then they'd like lean in, and you'd be like, "What is happening?" And they'd be like doing the first hit, and you'd be like, "What?" And then you'd like freeze with your American frozenness, and then you'd be like, "Oh, I'm supposed to like kiss them on the cheek." So apparently in France you do it twice, and in Quebec you do it 3 times.
3 times? So, like, wow, that's
3
a lot.
fucking times. So you just have to be like, duh, 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 and you're just like, why are we doing that? But it's okay. It's whatever.
I'm a big fan of the 1-time kiss on the cheek, but the 2 times or 3 times seems excessive to me. That's a lot of cheek kissing.
But yeah, I would always forget, and then they would lean in, and I'd be like, "What's happening?" And they'd be like, "Oh yeah."
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and I did meet up with Frigimon. We had lunch in the Chinese area, and it was awesome.
That's
nice.
awesome.
Very greasy, yummy pork.
Ooh, sounds good.
He isn't now afraid of you now, is he?
Oh, I have no idea. He may be. I mean, I did show him pictures. I was like, look at the party I was at last night. I mean, that's pretty frightening. So maybe...
He's pretty hard to scare off. I think you're fine.
I don't know. Yeah, but it was fun. We had a good time.
That's really cool. So, I'll do mine next. First off, just super hyped for Borderlands 3. It is, as we were recording Thursday, and it comes out tomorrow. It's already pre-downloaded on my Xbox. Just to wait for midnight.
Nice.
I love that. You're just like, I'm so excited.
One time there was a DLC that came out for Destiny, and I took the day off, but I got up at regular time, like if I was going to work, and I had she's a friend of mine. She had a female roommate at the time, and she's like, "I cannot believe you got up for a video game." I'm like, "You don't understand my dedication." So, but the other thing I want to talk about is like this total randomness with Remnant from the Ashes, with trying to get people into your game. So I think it has something to do with once I got farther, it helped. But so I was at the early stages of the game, and like I could play for an hour and a half, and not a single person would show up in my match. So you can like make your game public or closed. So I had it on public, and nobody would join for like an hour and a half, and I would just do some stuff or whatever, and then I'd get off. But even then, if I joined other public matches, I would join people at those early stages, and they would already have somebody, or somebody else would join just like a minute or two after I joined their game. So I don't know what that was about.
Weird.
And then I played. I still want to say early-ish in the game, and I played like on a Friday night. I had 2 people on my team within minutes of signing on. I was like, awesome. And then like, even if one of them left, like another one would join another minute or two later. I was like, this is awesome. And then like I was playing like midday on Saturday, nobody again. But then I made a whole lot of progress. I crushed through like 6 bosses. And then ever since last Sunday up to Thursday, every time I got on to a public game, I got 2 people within minutes. I don't know if they fixed something on their end or you just had to get farther in the game, but it's just totally rando. I don't know. And it was frustrating because some of these bosses are like, I actually ended up, the very first boss, the dragon, the second boss, I ended up soloing. And if some people have played that game, they're probably just like, what the fuck? You actually soloed that dragon? Yes, I got so overpowered playing. I would just go play with other people and join their games, which is a good way to get materials and stuff and upgrade your stuff. I played that so much that I was finally strong enough to kill the dragon solo. But now I'm at like bosses. I'm like, I don't understand how you could do this solo. You need at least 1 or 2 other people.
Right.
So
yeah, I heard multiple game podcasts talk about that dragon and be like, it's a huge bitch.
Early on it is, yeah. I did successfully solo that fucking dragon, and I was happy. I was so proud of myself.
Proud of you too.
Yeah, it's just like Dark Souls. You just really, really gotta lay heavy into the mechanics, and once you got something memorized, then you know how to dodge like everything and when to do the damage and whatnot. So that's basically what happened. But I really want to hear about the game you played, Bcom, because I'm interested in it.
So I played through and beat Control. That was the game I decided to get out of like my gaming dilemma from a little while back. And so Control is this, like, you play as this woman named Jessie Faden who enters this building that is basically like the FBI, except it's like the Federal Bureau of Control instead of investigations. And you are made the director of the FBC, basically. Like as soon as you basically enter the building. The abbreviation
is FBIC.
I mean, it's like, yeah, basically.
That's hilarious. It's funny to me.
And so it's a weird game where you have like an entity that has been sort of attached to you since you were a little girl. And this entity has sort of allowed you to like enter into this building, because this building is really spooky. Like normal people can't see this building. It's like in the middle of a city, but nobody can see it unless it wants to be found. But because you have this entity attached to you, you're able to get into the building, and the entity is bringing you there because you've been searching for like your long lost brother since you were a kid. And you both found this like entity together, but when you found it, like the bureau people came and they took your brother away. And so, yeah. So basically what the game involves is like exploring this crazy building, which is taken over by something called the Hiss, which is like, yeah, the Hiss. So like,
Cobra!
You'll walk into like a room, right, Kat? And there'll be like instead of like people like being at their desks and working, they're all floating in midair, just talking in like tongues and like just saying like random chanting words and stuff.
Are you sure this isn't just a nightmare that you have?
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's fucking terrifying. But like one of the things I like about the game is it's not a jump scare game. It's just like kind of like a cosmic horror game or something. Like it's an existential kind of horror. And so a lot of the game involves like wandering around this building, fighting some of the people who have become hiss because they're like violent, and finding lots of like memos on the desks, like and these memos just get increasingly worse and worse and worse. And you like it's at first you're like, oh, they're just trying to do their job, they're trying to like take control, and like by the like the midpoint of the game you're like, these people have no fucking clue what they're doing, they're so stupid. And like this is like, of course this happened to them. But yeah, it's really really fun. The only things that kind of hold it back are at least at launch, like these the technical issues with the game. Like even on an Xbox One X, which is what I was playing on, there were frame rate issues a lot of the time, and just like a lot of like bugginess. Like every time you would go in and out of the menu, it would be really janky and be bad for a couple seconds, and then it would be okay again. I talked to people who played it on decent PCs who said they weren't having those problems, so PC might be like the best place to play this, but PlayStation and Xbox are both having these issues.
That's unusual. Every game comes with bugs now, I feel like.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, while I thought, like, in general, like, the world building and, like, all of, like, the cinematic presentation of this game was awesome, I do feel like the ending was not, like, incredibly satisfying. Like, I felt like they sort of saved a bit too much for a potential sequel or something. But they did announce that they are putting out 2 expansions for this game next year. So that's cool. At least they're going to continue adding on to this game in the form of like story expansions.
Really? Even after a price drop days after it came out?
Yeah, that was the weird thing. Like, so I bought this at like full price, and I was telling Leo I was so annoyed because I saw this deal at like Target and I think Amazon for like to get the game for like $47 instead of $60, like 3 days after it came out, and I was like, what the fuck?
Sucker.
Yeah, I was suckered in there.
Tell me about the combat, because that's the big thing that drew my attention, because they were like throwing shit, and I saw a couple like articles where like they were like, it's just so satisfying to throw a fucking filing cabinet at something or a desk or a lamp.
Yeah, so the telekinesis, like throwing power, is probably the best way to do damage in that game. You have powers that you will unlock over the course of the game. You unlock the powers by finding these objects of power, and they're like telephones, or I don't know, just like weird objects that have like a weird history. I think one of them was a like thing that had like Russian nuclear launch codes on it at one point. But yeah, it's like you unlock different telepathic abilities, which I don't want to spoil some of them because they're pretty cool reveals, and they all add to your making the combat more fun and making the difficult combat in the late game more manageable, basically. But there's also a skill tree where you can put points into all of those various abilities. And once you get further down that skill tree, you just get like more and more fucking badass and capable of just like going into a room and just wrecking shit. And it's really great. And like a lot of the destruction in that game with like the telepathic abilities, be able to like pick up any object in a room and throw it. And then later in the game, being able to pick up people and throw them at other people is really fun. And it's also part of why the game doesn't run so well, because you have all of these physics objects in an area that are like bogging down the frame rate. But yeah, it's a really cool power fantasy by the end of the game. And there are some really great moments. There's something called the Ashtray Maze, which if you've played the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's a really great moment in the game. Yeah, it's a really well-made game. I think it's probably the best game the studio's ever made. Like, I liked it more than Alan Wake or Quantum Break, so good job, Remnant.
Awesome.
That entire game sounded like one of my fever dreams that I had.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
like, as bizarre.
It's really, if you look at any trailers, you can see it's really trippy. I hope it drops even more in price, especially when the DLCs come out. Maybe I can find some awesome deal next year.
And you're talking about someone had a dream that I was stuck in a medieval tower and there were people playing obnoxious rap music and I was throwing rocks at them and they finally left. And then someone came with a giant hairdryer and melted a hole in the wall and I escaped.
This is so similar to Control that like I feel like you wrote this game.
Becomes like, I think I did that in the game.
Like honestly though.
All right, guys, we are
just saying.
we are 20 minutes into this podcast.
We gotta talk about anime.
Let's talk about some anime.
We should do that.
So our first show is How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift? Episode 6. Want a new rival? Question mark. Hibiki's answer is no.
This one kind of made me not as excited.
Oh, it's sad. I like it. So Xena arrives in Japan, and Hibiki wants a sound system for her TV. This kind of sets up the whole thing.
And Xena is a Russian girl.
She's a Russian girl.
What is that?
She's looking for a boyfriend.
How did you say girl in Russian?
Shut up.
It's recorded. It's too late.
Can't take
We're
it
gonna
back
play
now.
it back like 6 times just for your listening pleasure.
So there is to be an arm wrestling tournament at the gym for gym members only, for silver whatever gym members only. The girls are interested, especially Hibiki, because there's a cash prize and she can buy an entertainment system. And they go and ask Machio about it. He first shows them like all the muscles you use when arm wrestling, and it's a lot. You use the forearms, you use the biceps, you use your shoulders, which is the delts, you use your sits muscles. I mean, the rotator cuff muscle, sits is the abbreviation for each of those muscles. And you even use part of your back, and even said some of your lower body too, because I guess the way they got this one set up, you can actually like lean into it, which is usually considered cheating, you know. And then he shows them his special table for the tournament, and I think people have probably seen it. There's like a peg you hold with your offhand, and you got nice pads where you put your elbows and a pad on each side so that when you get the other person low enough and they touch it, you know that they won. Mm-hmm. But he has Hibiki and Ayaka just do like a practice, and like he releases their hands, and Hibiki, I mean, if it wasn't an anime, she would have like just snapped Hayaka's arm instantly off. Like she just slams it down, because if you remember, she did the boxing thing and she like killed that punching bag. Well, this is the same thing all over again, and it's really funny because then like the art style changes to like this really serious one. Yeah. It's super hilarious, and they're all just like, "Oh my god!" Like a super like serious like JoJo moment almost. It's awesome. And then like even Ayaka is so blown away she can barely believe what just happened. She's like. She just loses and she's like, what just happened? I don't even remember the thing fucking starting. But then like Akimi's like, all right, I'm next. But then Machio steps in and he's like, all right, I'm going to do this. And then like it's a slight deadlock. But then Machio beats her and it like causes all his clothes to rip off. And then like you see Machio, yeah. So he's in his little fucking Speedo again. And then like he kind of just like away from the other girls is like, I actually had to go a bit serious with her. So he's like, I see the potential in her. Just like, okay. Oh, and then the art style like changes again back to the serious one and like shows all these serious dudes just like showing up for this tournament. There's like a guy chopping wood with like scars on his face, and like a guy in a cloak.
The guy who was holding flowers at like a grave, like to like his dead wife or something. Like, I'm gonna go win this arm wrestling tournament.
Right. It's pretty good. And then it goes back to the regular, and Hibiki finds out Ayaka and Satomi didn't sign up because they're like, yeah, after we saw what you did, we have no chance. What's the point? Mm-hmm. And then also Akimi got sick and she couldn't make it, unfortunately.
Oh, she also, when she was like under the covers, she reminded me of Kaguya in that episode where she's like really sick in bed.
Oh, Love is War? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the same exact like, oh, I'm sick under the covers like look.
And it's kind of funny because they announced that the first round and the final round of the women's arm wrestling will now begin because there's only 2 participants. And then, of course, none other than Xena comes out on the stage to be Hibiki's opponent. Then they kind of like do this like little interview thing with Xena. And she keeps trying to talk about arm wrestling, but they keep asking her other stuff like, what's her favorite food in Japan or something like that. But what she actually talks about is like two techniques called hook and roll. Hook was like one where you bent your elbows, your opponent's wrist, and roll was something about pulling on their thumb or something
like pulling
like
on
that.
their thumb until you can like roll over and get on top of them.
Yeah, like kind of ways to trick them into being off balance almost.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Bcom? You really liked that part.
Oh yeah, I thought it was just really funny because like a lot of like Japanese TV interviews with like foreigners do end up being about like, hey, what do you think about Japan? Isn't Japan so great? So I thought it was really funny. Like when Hibiki breaks in, it's just like, what is with this stereotypical interview? It was good.
So back to the match, and like Xena is blown away at like Hibiki's sheer ferocity. She stands no chance. So Xena loses, and Hibiki tapped a little bit into Machio's mind set and accidentally blew away some of her shirt, like the top right shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, wow. This is interesting because I remember half this when I read the manga. I remember half this episode, and then the last half I don't remember at all. So
Okay.
So like the three girls go to the school next day. Hibiki, Akima, and Ayaka, and they run into Xena in their school uniform. She has decided to study abroad, and when she's introduced to the class, she like challenges Hibiki, but then Akimi's like, she's in actually class 2B instead. So she just looks like a fool standing up there.
It's just another example of the anime being like, let's do the stereotypical thing, but acknowledge we're being stereotypical.
Interesting you do that, because then there's a scene about the reason why Xena acts the way she does is because isn't there like three stereotypical
like
Russian
icy
girls you
cold
think about?
Russian girl,
Yeah.
screaming like "Harasho!" like the fucking girl from Girls in Panzer, Russian girl. Yeah. And she's like, I'm trying not to stray from any of these stereotypes. I've constructed a persona.
Yeah. She talks to the girls like after break and accuses Hibiki of like, you set me up. It's like, yeah, how did that work? And then you learn at Xena's gym, they really didn't do like heavy weightlifting, which breaks Akimi's heart. They mainly just did bodyweight exercises, and she like push-ups, pull-ups, so on, so on, like squats without weights. She also says they do something that's called kipping.
Yeah.
And basically, it's like doing push-ups or pull-ups with like a little extra momentum. Just think like what we would call cheating, like with a pull-up, like how you would like swing your knees a little bit to get the momentum. But the whole point is you're trying to get a rhythm and tempo doing it. And she said that way it kind of works even more of the body. And she like even recommend doing 30 to 50 of these, and I've never actually heard of kipping before, so that was new to me. What did you want to say, Kat?
I just didn't get what the benefit of that would be over just doing them regularly.
It's more of a whole body workout, and like I said, that's why you do the more reps, and that's why you keep the same rhythm and tempo. I mean, I kind of get it, but I don't know how good it would work in practice.
The show was seeming to say that it was like focused on like making your body more fully coordinated rather than just building muscle. Like,
yeah,
so, yeah.
Specifically
like
for martial arts.
Workout?
For martial arts was their big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, but
so the girls end up all going home, and Xena says she has to meet the people housing her, so she'll see them later. And Hibiki gets home, and like we're already guessing it, but she looks down and she's like, "Oh, extra pair of shoes. I must have a guess. There must be a guest here." But then I loved that she immediately made the connection, so she just fucking runs through her house, and then just finds Xena sitting there sipping some tea. She's like, "Hey, thanks for housing me." I was like, It's funny because the characters in the show are really self-aware a lot of the times. Like earlier, even when Hibiki broke in during like Xena's interview, like, why are you doing this? You know, it's so and so, and like they'll break the fourth wall a lot like that, and it's really nice, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't mention Xena's good friend Vladimir Putin. It's like whenever she talks about Russia, it's like, oh yeah, Vladimir Putin is there hanging out with the bear from Golden Kamuy. I just liked that.
They're like have each other's like arms over their shoulders, and they're like almost halfway embracing each other. It's hilarious.
Yep. Kat, what
I
did you not love about this episode? What's wrong?
I just didn't like that there wasn't a lot of actual weightlifting stuff in it. Like, I kept looking for the educational stuff that we usually get, and there wasn't as much, and I was kind of bummed.
Well,
I did.
they did really go over how like professional arm wrestling works and stuff like
But I
that.
don't give a fuck about professional arm wrestling. I care about like the weightlifting stuff that they go on about. I did like the weird in-betweens of like all the Russian stuff that you would get, where it'd be like, look at the Russian dolls, and then like an icy landscape, and then like a guy who's obviously supposed to be Vladimir Putin.
It
just,
reminded
like,
me
flexing.
of a movie from 1987 called Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone.
Great movie.
He's like driving, like it's an arm wrestling. It's a movie about arm wrestling, and like he's driving. He's a trucker, and he's like driving his truck, and he's like fucking doing curls with his right arm while he's driving and shit. It's actually a not bad movie.
It's like the most 80s movie ever. I like that movie a lot.
That's part of its charm, is that it's so fucking 80s.
I watched this in the Toronto airport, and there were some people giving me some weird looks.
Yo, you watched Over the Top?
No, I watched
this anime.
this episode
this anime.
in the Toronto
Nice.
airport, and there were some people being like, "What the fuck is this bitch watching?"
They were looking at the girls. They were like, "Damn."
Yeah, so it's probably the girls that caught their attention.
Or
I think it's the
Machio.
flexing.
Who knows?
Who knows?
But
Speaking of girls, there are still some maidens in their Savage season that we've got to talk
shit.
about. Episode 6, Maidens in the Woods. All right, so the students in charge of their high school's cultural festival asked the literature club if they can construct some sort of love story urban legend to get a bunch more people to come this year to the cultural festival. Because they had like an idea, like a very stereotypical one you see in a lot of anime, like, oh, there's going to be a bonfire, right? And say you go stand in the shadow of your crush and whisper, I love you, then you'll always be together because, anime. But
True.
they want the Lit Club to come up with like something better than that, basically. And to also do a reading, because last year they did one. It was like a chill place to relax and hang out because nobody went to it. And Rika surprisingly says yes to this proposal. And all the other members are like, why? And she sells them on it by saying, well, it's a way to challenge ourselves to actually write one of these romantic stories that we've only just tasted up until this point. But to me, it was pretty clear Rika's into this because she's in a very romantic state of mind right now, having started dating Shun, and probably wants to do something for him. So afterwards, Hitaha approaches the teacher Yamagishi with more of her indirect foreplay. This time, she lets him know, I'm wearing a black thong. And he's like not that impressed, and she's like, it's like I'm fighting a sumo match by myself right now. And because he's like not turned on by this, and she's very upset. And they're interrupted by this teacher who's got a badonkadonk ass. I don't know how else to describe it. The camera zooms in on it.
The show, like, feet, it's specifically, it's just nothing but a frame of her ass just going boink, boink, boink.
Who, like, is walking down, she, like, steals Yamagishi away and starts walking down the hallway with him, and Hitaha overhears them talking about how Yamagishi's dad, like, sends him a bunch of mushrooms, and he gave some of them to this teacher to, like, cook. And how, like, his dad, like, runs an inn in, like, the countryside. So, the girls are having trouble thinking of a romantic urban legend. So, Nina urges Kazusa to think about what she'd want her love story with Izumi to start with. And Kazusa freaks out, and she kind of breaks down. She tells Nina, I'm not as pretty as you. And Nina asks, like, what her looks have to do with anything, and does one need to have perfect looks to be in a relationship, which is true. Like, you don't need to look perfect to be in a relationship. And Kazusa gets overwhelmed and just makes an excuse and, like, runs away. And at home later that night, Kazusa's thinking about how she feels like Izumi and her are always connected, even when they're apart, because they've been close for so long. And she remembers Nina saying that Izumi is kind of weird, and she kind of yells out, I'm weird! And her parents, like, look at her, they're like, yeah, honey, you're weird. Be confident. They're such good parents. They're really oblivious, though, but they're good.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, in class, they're starting to hand out different jobs for this festival, right? And Shun raises his hand and yells out, I'll do anything as long as I get to do it with Sasaki-san. And she gives him a death glare because she is uncomfortable with people knowing about their relationship at all.
She needs to get over that. Like, why is she so, like, against anyone know? Like, it's kind of weird. I don't know.
Well, she tells him on the roof, like, I feel like people will perceive me differently if they know that I'm dating you because...
Well, but, like, that's just tough. That's part of growing up. Like, I don't know.
That's what this show's about growing up, Kat.
True.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, she's got to just suck it up a little bit about that. Because, like, it's not fair to him to have to hide it all the time.
Yeah, he actually asks her, like, do you actually want to be my girlfriend? And like, she says yes, but he, like, kind of walks off, like, a little bit annoyed, and she, like, even whispers, like, after him, like, please just wait a bit longer, like, because she's clearly planning to do something. And she even says, I'm planning to hide my romance with him in a forest of other crushes at this culture festival where, like, it won't be noticed by everybody. So that's her whole plan.
Good luck with fucking that.
The girls keep getting their ideas shot down by Yamagishi, who explains that the surrounding community, or at least someone, is complaining, and they're like the prudest fucking people ever. They banned a folk dance at the festival because there'd be too much excessive contact between girls and boys in the dancing. Then they complained about the bonfire because they were like, oh, if people stare at the flames against the dark night sky, it might stir up lewd feelings inside of them. And it's just like, oh my god, who the hell are these people? But at this point, Hita has the big brain idea that the club can go on a field trip to spur their imagination, and is like, oh, let's go to Yamagashi's father's inn. And of course, he's not crazy about this idea. And he's even less crazy when Hita's like, I'll pay you back with my body. And like, this is all coming off like Hita had met with her editor, and like that girl who had like written the LN in like the first episode, who had like beaten her out basically to get published. It didn't sell very well. So now Hita's editor is telling her like the exact opposite advice of what he told her before, and saying like, no, you shouldn't write erotica anymore. Nobody cares about that. You should write stories about unripe young hearts that are shocked by really romantic developments.
Oh my god.
And so the thing is, though, she decides like, you know what? I'm interested in writing about erotic things now. So I'm just going to keep writing about what I want to write about, and I'm not listen to this idiot. And so, yeah, Nina also continues to mercilessly prod Kazusa about Izumi. We find out that, like, when Kazusa had ran away earlier in the episode, Momoko had asked Nina to, like, please just clear things up and tell her you're, like, not going after him. But Nina is actually kind of pissed off at Kazusa, because she's apparently always been blamed by other girls for, like, seducing and stealing guys that she had absolutely no interest in. And she thought Kazusa was her friend and wouldn't act the same way, but she is. But she also knows that Izumi and Kazusa are too shy to, like, ever make a move on each other. So she kind of finds, like, a middle bargain. Like, she's going to get some revenge on Kazusa, but at the same time help her by pretending that she and Izumi are getting closer and closer and spurring Kazusa to actually do something about it, basically. So, yeah, even though they've arrived at the inn in the countryside, the girls can't come up with anything. Rika tries to pressure Kazusa to, and she just blurts out, like, well, maybe the students can set fires in the hallway, and if the school burns down, they'll be together forever. And they're like, let's take a break. And so Kazusa and Momoko go to take a bath together. And, like, Kazusa is just, like, so insecure right now about Nina and, like, how she feels about all this. And then Nina comes into the bath, and Momoko...
And is hot as fuck.
She's hot as fuck. She's a very womanly figure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kazusa, like, decides to stay in the bath a little bit longer, because I think mostly because she doesn't want to get out of the bath and have her body compared directly to Nina's body.
Yeah, she doesn't. She doesn't want Nina to see that her body is not as superior. Yeah.
And so, like, the episode sort of ends as she's just, like, thinking, she's looking at Nina's body as she's, like, washing herself, and she's just thinking, like, God, her breasts are so perfect. Everything about her is so perfect. I suck. And then she, like, gets overheated and faints in the water, and the episode ends.
Yeah, that's a typical trope right there.
Yeah, it's a pretty typical trope. Yeah, I didn't mind that, like, onsen scene at the end because it was so just, like, on point with like all the themes of the episode. Like typically I would like sort of mind, but it didn't feel like fan service to me. It felt like storytelling.
No, I completely agree. Like, and I think I've said it before, but like because of the Japanese culture, every anime you at least get the one bath scene.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, they love their baths, so I'm like, all right, you get the one, whatever.
For such a like conservative culture, they really do love to get naked and steamy with each other.
Yeah, I like how Momoko was like, oh, I was taken aback because Nina wasn't wearing anything. And Nina's just like, well, it's like bad manners to like cover yourself up when you go to the baths, which is definitely like something I've like read. Like,
yeah,
I think it was taking your towel into the baths.
Yeah, like taking your towel and like you can take a towel into the baths. Like people do that, but like people don't excessively like cover themselves in the baths in Japan. At least the ones I went to, they were just like out and proud, you know, just hanging out there. So, it was good
Look
times.
at all this, yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was another interesting episode. It just keeps building. Like I liked that emotional outburst from Kazusa because it feels like she's holding all this stuff inside and. Yeah, it needs to start coming out a little bit more, and she's probably going to explode pretty soon, and that'll be interesting.
I also really like the pacing of this show.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just moves from thing to thing to thing, and like the way it cuts back and forth between the different storylines doesn't feel rushed or forced or anything. It just feels like natural, and it works for me at least. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kat, tell us what you thought about this episode of Demon Slayer that Bcom and I have done nothing but praise.
Oh my god, you guys are so obsessed with this. And like I did watch it twice because I wanted to watch it once without having to worry about writing up, you know, everything.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
But you guys are like, I watched it 6 times. And I'm just like, Jesus fucking shit.
Episode
I don't watch
19.
things like that. Woo. Okay, but yeah, so start off, Tanjiro is still fighting the Spider Boy, which I was surprised that he was the one that was the 12, one of the 12 or whatever.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to think like the dad guy is, but
yeah, because you would think, especially with the emphasis that you find out that the Spider Boy, whose name is Rui, has on like roles and stuff.
Yeah.
You would think that he would think his dad would be the one who's stronger.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Meanwhile, Inosuke is super into that half and half like kimono dude. You know, the one with like half one pattern and half the other pattern.
Yeah, Gyu. Yeah.
Gyu.
Yeah.
I haven't like memorized the teachers yet. The new teachers who we haven't seen much of.
I like half and half is a good nickname for
They're
him.
not teachers. They have a specific name though, because they're like the best of the best.
Oh, I forget what they're called. Damn.
I forget what it's called too.
Yeah.
But they're like something. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Hashira? I don't know, something like that.
They're the best
Inosuke,
demon slayers that there is basically
that
what
there
they are.
is.
Yeah.
They're the bestest there is.
They're the whatever the ranking system was in Bleach with like the top people. The way it was.
But yeah, so Inosuke's really into this dude named Gyu. And he challenges him and is like, you brought down that dad spider thing? I'm gonna bring you down. And then basically Gyu's just like, you're an idiot. Go back to training. And then he ties up Inosuke and just leaves. And I was thinking to myself, like, that's actually kind of dangerous. You can't just leave him tied up in the woods.
Yeah.
Like, when there's all these demons coming around.
Also, like I just loved Inosuke's, like, voice acting in that scene. Like, the fucking sounds that were coming out of his stupid mouth were so funny to me. I had to hand it to Yoshitsugu Matsuoka, who's the voice actor Kirito himself did a really good job there.
I also want to note like the leaps and power levels here. So you got Inosuke fighting this monster guy, and he actually forces him to transform, then upping his power level to a point to where now Inosuke can't even hurt him. Mm-hmm. And then the guy Giyu shows up and just makes
manhandles him like mincemeat.
Just one move and just ends him immediately. And it's like, holy shit, that's another big leap in like power level here. Where the fuck are we going with this? So like this really just makes like Tanjiro and Inosuke and even Zenitsu in his like transformed, passed out form. It just shows you that they're actually very, very weak still.
Yeah, they have lots to learn.
Crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, meanwhile, Zenitsu is still trying to stay alive with that cute girl. The other one.
Shinobu.
Hovers over him.
She is cute.
Shinobu.
I like her a lot.
And she just injects him with that
Shinobu.
antidote. And she mentioned something here about flashbacks and like what they could mean. And I thought that was interesting for later.
Good foreshadowing.
Because it's kind of cute how it like ties out everything in.
And the voice actor of her,
Saori Hayami.
Yeah, I knew she sounded so familiar, and she was from Darling in the Franxx.
She's from a lot of things. Have you ever seen that one scene? This is such a meme, but that one scene from when supernatural battles become commonplace.
That's exact. Like her voice is exact same as Kokoro from Darling in the Franxx. That's what I was picking up on.
Well, that too, but like she does that one like famous like scene that she did all in one take, where she like freaks out and at that guy in the supernatural battles show.
She's also one of my favorite girls of all time in a completely different role, Deanna Del Rio from Double Decker.
That fucking Double Decker show.
I really like that show. Well, that's crazy. Like Deanna and Kokoro are she's voicing two completely different people there.
Yeah,
like,
she has really good range.
Extreme personality-wise, so that's awesome.
She's also an origairu. She's good in everything she's in. We get it. Okay, move on.
So, in the meantime, Tanjiro's blade gets fucking snapped, and he's basically he's done.
Oh,
like,
she's also Fubuki from One Punch Man Season 2. I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there.
God damn it, Leo! I can't yell this episode.
It's okay. I did it for you, Kat. It's fine.
Shut
go ahead.
Nezuko jumps in front of Tanjiro right before he would have died by the slicey web things. And manages to save him, and Tanjiro's like, what? No, Nezuko! And like trying to keep her hand on and shit. And meanwhile, Rui's just like, oh my god, a genuine bond.
She looks like
I've never seen
she's roped up like
before.
a fucking roast.
I know.
I love that. I was watching that like when she gets up in the air, and I'm just like, she looks like a rotisserie ham up there.
Like, so first Rui, like, he's like, I've never seen love before. And he's not recognizing that, like, just because he would get her doesn't mean he gets, like, that love. You actually have to make a bond with someone.
Yeah.
So he's like, I want that. And so he beats up his sister for bothering him.
If
and
you
tells
notice,
her to go.
there is so much stuff about family in this show. It starts off like Tanjiro and Nezuko's whole thing is about being family. And then now we got this guy who's all about making his perfect demon family.
So what you're saying, this is the Fast and the Furious of anime. It's all about family. Vin Diesel's going to show up.
You just did Demon Slayer disservice in comparing it to Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, you really shouldn't have done that.
Oh, man.
But yeah, so he just is like, cuts his sister's head off, really, and there's just like, go kill people on the mountain.
Yeah, she like picks her head back up and puts it back on, runs all in.
I'm just like, girl, no. And then he tells Tanjiro, like, I want the sister, give her to me, I will spare you. And Tanjiro's like, no, like, I'm not giving her to you, and like, she has her own will too. And this is when Rui goes into like assigned roles, and if you don't understand your role, there's no reason for your existence, blah, blah, blah. He grabs Nezuko, and she, like, cuts him. And he's like, fuck you, and strings her up to punish her.
Yeah.
And to me, I know you guys thought it looked like a roast. I thought it looked kind of gratuitous. Like, the way she's hung up is, like, slightly suggestive. And then also, like, the
Yeah,
way
it
her
looked
kimono.
like one of those pictures you posted
Yeah,
from
it did.
the bondage
Yep,
thing you went
the
to.
bondage demonstration I went to. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, those pictures are up on our Discord if you would like to see. The Shibari one, it looked like.
Yeah.
Is the one it looked like, yeah. And I also thought it was bullshit that the kimono just like manages to stay up. Why is it in all anime, like whatever fucking dress this bitch is wearing or kimono or whatever, magically they're upside down and it's like barely hanging on and not. I guarantee you, I've worn a fuck ton of dresses. That shit is coming down. Like, it's not gonna stay in this very delicate position where it covers you.
Imagination.
Yeah.
Part of the magic of anime, all right? it's what it
It always
is.
bothers me so much. So, like, yeah, you know, she's strung up and it's all very like, ooh, boys, you've been waiting for this.
And she's going the whole time.
Very
Yeah.
accurate. Man, I
Yeah.
can't believe I just put the clip in there. Yeah.
And then Rui even lets Tanjiro hit him for a while, and it's clear they're outmatched. Like, Rui could whip his ass. And at this point, Nezuko passes out or something, and I'm not really clear why, because she's not really that hurt.
I think she was playing him. Like, she was lulling him into a false sense of security at this point. I think she was thinking ahead, basically.
Okay, I guess I could see that. I was just like, what? And then Tanjiro uses something called constant flux and is able to slice the threads when he uses this move. But Rui's like, well, that means shit because I can strengthen my threads. So he does.
The constant flux thing was him constantly building up momentum off each move. Mm-hmm. So that was cool.
But yeah,
That was
yeah,
cool.
Rui's like, I've got this like red magic thread cage and you're dead now.
Yeah, he's like, he uses some kind of thing called a cage move or whatever, and Tanjiro's like, well, fuck, I'm about to die. And he has a flashback, and it's very well animated, like the little facets, like right before he has the flashback, is very well animated.
Oh yeah, that whole like constant flux plunge is amazing, and then everything from this point on is just
It's pretty.
pretty as fuck. Holy shit.
Yep. Which is why I watched it like 6 or so times.
You boys are so into visuals. I'm just like, I don't care as long as you give me a good story.
Yeah, that's true. But like, it's not just the visuals for me. Like for me, the thing that really stood out the most this episode was Yuki Kajiura's music, because she did such an amazing job throughout the episode, just controlling the emotional tone of everything that's going on through her music
perfectly.
and just building slowly and slowly and slowly. And then when it gets to this point after this flashback, that, oh my god, the music is so fucking good. Like, it's some of the best stuff she's ever done. And like, she's done like Madoka Magica and like a million other shows, and I still think like this singular episode is like one of her finest achievements in composing. It's so incredible.
Okay, but yeah, so in this flashback, you see Tanjiro's dad. And this pissed me off because I don't care what else you inherit from your dad. You don't inherit a magical scar.
Maybe it's a birthmark.
So, like,
It could be a birthmark, yeah.
it's not, nobody inherits a birthmark. That's not an inheritable thing. That's not a thing. So, like, they have the same exact giant spot on their forehead on the one side. That's not an inheritable thing.
Look,
That's
those
some
are
bullshit.
just strong genes, Kat. You know, I mean, it
No,
happens.
they're not fucking strong genes. The only thing it could be is like when a man is born in the family, they like pulled it down and like brand it or something, which is fucked up. And I hope that's
Well, I
not
mean,
what
there's
they're
a
saying.
tradition of cutting the penis when you're born, so if you want to talk
but,
about
like,
fucked up.
that's like a couple centimeters of skin. I'm pretty sure branding a child's forehead with a hot iron is worse than that.
Probably not a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so they have the same scar. You see that his dad is very frail. He tells Tanjiro in this flashback to breathe and become Hinokami. And he remembers seeing his dad doing this Kagura dance, which is very hard, especially since he is so frail.
In the snow.
in the snow, and it's very pretty and goes on for a long time.
It's like super fluidly animated to the point where it almost looked out of place, but it was really nice. I don't know.
It was very beautiful, yeah. And then Tanjiro asked his mom as a kid, like, how can he do that? Like, he's so frail usually. And he's told that there's this breathing technique that he can use to conserve strength and like helps things like cold not bother you. And like in this flashback, you kind of find out the earrings are part of being a Kagura too somehow.
Yeah, his dad tells him like those are like the two important things. Like you inherit these earrings and the dance from me. Like that's
which made me laugh. It's like these are the two marks of our family: this dance and pretty jewelry. Like, what? Okay. So Tanjiro does the breathing and dance and combines it with his sword work after he comes out of this flashback. And it somehow works like amazingly. It's almost like a fire technique as opposed to a water technique.
Yeah,
so it's interesting. He's got both now.
Switching the breathing form. And then like so his broken sword becomes like a fire sword, like a fire dragon sword. It's fucking awesome.
You guys, it's a fire dragon. Oh.
Kat, you don't understand. There was a fucking fire dragon. He came out of his sword. It's so cool.
Oh my gosh. It's a really well done sequence. He charges at Rui. You're just like, yeah, and he manages to get an opening, and he gets to Rui. And you see Nezuko's mom telling her like, "You gotta save your brother, ganbatte." And then Tanjiro just cuts Rui's head off. I guess Nezuko says something like demon power or something.
Well,
but I don't
her blood.
She
Her
explodes the blood that is like drenched all over the spider threads, which throws Rui off for like half a second, which allows Tanjiro to cut his head off.
I was like, what was her contribution? I was like trying to figure out like what the fuck
She basically
did she do?
got her own blood technique is what happened because that's the thing
I
that
could
the
tell
demons
she had
did.
some power, but I was like, what did it even do?
You guys are all missing the big point. She talked. She said words
Holy
out loud.
shit.
Like this is a miracle. Oh my god. She's like, yeah, blood demon art or whatever. And she,
Did you say he cuts off Rui's head?
yeah.
He kills him.
Oh, it's like beautiful. It's like all like fucking like fluorescent like
It is
pink
very beautiful.
and shit. It's so good. Oh, it's
It's what I
Nice.
call eye candy. Yeah, it was amazing.
You guys are so obsessed with the visuals.
I'm gonna watch that episode again after this podcast.
Oh my god, no. You know how many fucking things you could watch other than that again?
Ben,
No, I don't.
God damn it. You guys.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, Kat, I love that episode so much. It's like just a perfect mix of like everything on all cylinders with like the visuals, the audio, the music, the storytelling building up to this point. I was actually really happy that Nezuko did help at the end there because a lot of this episode was kind of her being a damsel. Like, yeah, she scratched him once, like, sure, but then she was like a fucking rotisserie ham for half of the episode. And then, but like the fact that she does team up with him at the end there and that they both communicate with like their mom and their dad to like take things away from them that they need to overcome this like shitty spider boy was fun. I liked that they were like sort of equals there. And they were both getting powered up, basically. So,
It was nice.
yeah.
Okay, let's talk about other nice things.
Yep. Vacuums. Woo!
Bim, episode 5, Sweeper. So I'll make it quick. Jesus Christ.
Oh, what, are you not happy with your choice?
Oh, shut up,
No,
Kat.
I
Don't make
still-
him angry.
I still enjoy it.
Stop it,
I still
Kat.
enjoy watching this.
You can't do this.
Ben is fighting the Sweeper guy when he starts to get sucked in. He uses the momentum to knock Sweeper back and causes his canister to like open up, and it dumps out like 2 humans. Sweeper guy then runs off, and Ben like uses the electric power to restart the 2 people's hearts, which I thought was kind of cool.
I actually like that, too. I was like, oh, that's fun. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, he then has, I mean, with the electrical powers, I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah, it makes some sense.
Yeah. Then has Bella go after the Sweeper guy, and she ends up losing him. But in the process, she does see the creepy Undertaker guy, but she doesn't think anything of it because she doesn't know anything about him being a bad guy yet. And then Sonia visits her friend's grave and runs into Daryl. Daryl there, and he tells her he will get his vengeance and that he and her both know they should really be going after the unseen council, which is the real problem here. It's just kind of like, okay. And then there's a super short scene where Bello's friends are like worried about him, and they have noticed that even though he never comes into the arcade anymore, he's always close by, like he's down the alley, and like the little girl yells at him at one point. Mm-hmm. And then Sonya ends up going to HQ and meets with her superiors. It seems they are going to believe her about the monsters, and they're going to make a special task force to capture them. They have also dubbed the 3 monsters who can change into humans, Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Sonya also suggests that they may be allies because she was saved by one of them at one point. The chief takes this into consideration, and then he introduces the guy who will be leading his basically special task force, and his name is Felt.
This guy's such a douchebag.
Yeah, he's pretty bad. So Sweeper is back with Mad Scientist Guy and wants an even better vacuum. But first, he has to tell us why he went crazy. Apparently, he grew up in a dirty house. His mother always brought home men, and they would beat him. So out of boredom one day, he decides to clean the house. And he also cleans his mom and the guy she brought home. By clean, I mean kills them.
Yeah.
But he does actually clean the apartment. Like puts them in like a fucking freezer or something. I don't know.
Or like a big like case, or something.
Yeah, so like from here on out, he's just obsessed about cleaning and shit. So Sonya and Felt go back to the lower and set up shop in that precinct. And then Sonya gets a call from somebody named the Helmsman and goes to talk to them. He does say he recognizes these 3 people she's trying to find walking around from time to time in this area, which is the older man with a younger girl and an even younger boy. That's how he puts it. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Mad Scientist turned Sweeper into Mecha Sweeper.
Yeah.
He's basically just a mech at this point, going around the town.
Sucking up the town. I'm cleaning up the streets.
And he's just going crazy, just sucking up entire streets of people. And calls are like coming into the police, and Felt's like, that's not the one we're after, so ignore it.
I was
what?
Like, are you kidding me?
People are dying.
Like mass murder is happening. He's like, well, it's not the like one guy we care about, so no, I'm not going to send any officers out.
One of the 3 people they care about, the humanoid ones. Yeah,
it's just like, it's probably fine.
So Sonya ends up coming across Mecha Sweeper and almost gets sucked up, but gets saved by Bim at the last moment. Yeah. That keeps happening. She then quickly calls Felt, and he's like, all right, since this is one of the guys we're looking for, we're going on the scene, boys. And the fight begins between Bim and the Sweeper guy, and like Bim has to transform to be able to battle him. And the fight is just over as quickly as it started because Bim allows himself to be sucked up by Sweeper and then just blows him up from the inside because he has he's like electricity. I mean, come on. Yeah. And he's a mecha, so like this was obvious. And then that's when Felt and his task force suddenly show up, and like they fire off smoke grenades, and then they shoot like tethered spears into Bim, and then like a type of containment spear just like suddenly appears around him, and like it looks like he's at a loss, but then like Sweeper's guy's like fuck you, and he starts like sucking up a bunch of the task force guys, and that causes like the sphere around Bim to go away, and then as Felt's getting sucked up, he like electrocutes Sweeper real quick to actually save Felt himself. And then that's when like Bella and Bello show up and they help free Bim from like the spears through his body and stuff. And then like Felt calls Sweeper trash and then just has him shot to death. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, and like Sonya like tries to convince Felt at this point that like, oh, Bim is probably a good guy, like I said before, since he clearly just saved your life. But she just can't get anywhere with this guy. Like, this guy's just comically bad. Yeah.
I'm still going to capture him. Whatever. And then we finish with seeing that monster lady saying she wants Bim, and it's kind of like a possessive / infatuated way. Mm-hmm. So,
So, I also watched episode 6 of this, like, just to give this, like, a fair shake since, like, you know, we've only watched 5 episodes and it's mid-season cuts and stuff. And, like, so next week's episode, like...
Ruby, stop!
Oh, God. Here we go again.
No!
Next week's episode is about this guy who was, like, an astronaut who was sent on a mission to the moon, but then he gets caught in a space-time continuum warp and gets spat out, like, 50 years later But
that sounds actually really cool.
I know it does. It's like so weirdly weird. Like so he can't survive on Earth anymore because he's like a moon person now, and so he has to walk around in a moon suit. And he was experimented on by like scientists on Earth, and he met a little girl in the lab, and he takes care of this little girl who has like a really weird looking character design. And it turns out she has like psychic powers of her own and stuff. And so I thought that was like one of the more interesting like villain things. But at the same time, like the show as a whole is still just like not going anywhere. It's just kind of monster of the week. But at least that was like one of the more interesting like villain combos that I've seen with episode 6. But yeah, I don't know. We have the same feelings about the show as I've had for weeks now, basically.
It's mediocre.
Mediocre.
All right, guys, let's take a break real quick.
Leo's like, stop telling me the truth. I can't take it.
Okay, you can't handle the truth.
Did you order the code red? Anyway, we'll be back.
We'll be back in a minute.
Hey, do you like wrestling?
Whether it be in a bar, an arena, some weird place in Asia, or in a stadium?
Or the occasional penis plex?
Well, if any of these things might tickle your fancy, anywhere in between from penises to wrestling, you can come and check out our podcast.
Our podcast name is Smack It Down. We talk all things WWE, New Japan, anything else in between.
I'm Jay Silver.
I'm Corey Gold.
And we look forward to you joining us.
Happy Rusev Day.
Happy Rusev Day indeed.
The Trash Pandas bring you this nugget from another trash can. What happens when Brains and Bullets discuss episode 2 of One Punch Man?
Pretty much gene splicing heads. They will
Yep.
Yeah, they will splice genes. They have a cyborg gorilla. They have frog that walks on 2 legs and communicates at long range. Like they got, you think they splice
the Lion King?
Yeah, they have the lion. They have a f***ing lion, Beast King, and
Simba.
Yeah, he's f***ing Simba. I don't mean he's f***ing Simba. I mean he's f***ing Simba.
We at Trash Pandas Watch Anime dig through the trash so you don't have to. You can find the Trash Pandas Watch Anime podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter where you'll get live updates from what we do.
What was the name of the episode going to be, Biko?
And we're back with Russian girls.
Yay!
Maybe Kohaku from Dr. Stone was once a Russian girl. We don't know. She doesn't know.
I mean, she could be Russian.
You never know.
She's got blonde hair. This is more than likely.
Blonde
She's
hair,
near
blue
Japan.
eyes?
She's
Sure.
near Japan. Yeah. Episode 6, Two Nations of the Stone World. So, to Kat and Leo's delight, this episode starts by continuing on with the flashback to when Senku woke up alone.
I love how that's just your first thought. You're like, Kat and Leo are going to love this as you start watching the episode.
Oh, you loved it last week, clearly. If you listened to that episode, oof, Kat and Leo did not like this flashback. He starts digging out Taiju, and then he gets to work thinking about what is the underlying cause of all this petrification, which strangely only affects humans and swallows. And so he considers some of the potential causes could have been like an alien attack, or a foreign military weapon gone wrong, or maybe some kind of virus strain that only affects these two things.
At this point, everything's an option. I mean, really, like, this is so crazy. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's true. He's basically able to sort of backtrack through how he broke out of his petrification, and like sort of like look at the evidence. And he kind of realizes that it wasn't just simple deterioration of the stone that allowed him to break out. In fact, is sort of the opposite. Like the parts that were more deteriorated in the stone broke off of him and became like a stone husk. It was the parts that were intact that reverted into living cells and healed. And so he's like, okay, something nearby had to cause this. So he finds the bat cave and he tries the nitric acid on some of the stone left on the back of his head. and finds that it works. Like, it cracks it open. But then when he tries nitric acid on everybody else, it doesn't work. Like, we already know that he has to make nitol with alcohol to get people out. That's the miracle fluid. But for some reason, it worked on him. And he's like, well, what was I doing differently? And he's like, oh, I was thinking the entire time. And apparently, thinking takes a lot of energy. And as we know from Einstein, E equals MC squared.
Okay.
Dude, are we going to talk about the animated Einstein?
Yeah. Wait, you mean like just like the picture of him with like the tongue like sticking out?
Yeah, and how like they just focus on it for so fucking long.
Well, like that's kind of actually a famous one, really.
I mean, yeah, but it's animated weird, and they focus on it a long time.
Wait, are we going to talk about how he like bit into his thumb until it started bleeding, and then drew in blood equals MC squared on his tunic, so he would never forget?
Okay, blood is gonna flake off. Like, let me tell you,
blood will stain his tunic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it will start to flake. Let me tell you, women understand a lot about blood stains.
Oh,
I get that.
Oh boy, here we
God,
go.
Like,
do we have to go through this?
It
I
is
don't want
not.
to.
It is not gonna stay on there like that. If he really wanted to make a stain, he could have found some fucking berries and crushed them and done that, and it would have been much better. Let me tell you.
But he does not have the detergent we have today. So
it's still gonna flake off. I'm telling you, it's not gonna stay like a berry stain.
But I know blood stains are a big thing. So
blood stains are a big thing for people who are like into weird shit, but like not just to put on your clothes.
no, I'm
It's not
saying
gonna
blood
stay.
stains are a thing where you can't get them out of your clothes.
Oh, you can. You can always get them out.
Yeah, but think about what era he's in.
Yeah, it's like a fucking skin, like an animal skin. I don't know if that would stain any better. I have no idea.
Is it really? Because it's a lab coat. But I guess he did make everything out of.
No, yeah, he made it out of like some animal skin. I'm assuming. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not
Who
sure.
knows?
Anyway, he just decides it must have been something interacting with the way he was like expending energy inside of the petrified stone that leaked some other chemical out that mixed with the bat shit.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
Sounds like some utter bull crap.
So at some point he like drags Taiju into this bat cave, and he's like had it up to here because like when you're on your own and you're trying to survive, like he's just exhausted every day because he has to do so many things just to survive in a single day. And he's like, I need this hunk of man meat to prop me up and make life possible and easy. And he starts yelling, and like in the present, Taiju is still like leaning over Senku's lifeless body after Tsukasa like hit him in the neck. And they start screaming simultaneously in the past and present at each other in split screen. I'll believe in you and wait for as long as it takes. I'm hopeless without you. And then thunder and lightning dramatically strike in the background. And so in the present today, like with Taiju, the storm passes and like Taiju and Yuzuriha are like staring up at the sky. And then they suddenly hear Senku's voice telling them, don't raise your voices because we're going to be screwed if Tsukasa hears us now. And then they were like, oh yeah, that's good advice. And then they look down and they're like, oh, he's awake. Oh my God. And he's like, I give you both 10 billion points for figuring out my neck petrification protected me. And then like 10 minutes into the episode, the OP starts playing. So that was kind of fun. I liked that. It was good.
Dude, extending my sense of disbelief was really pushing at that part. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna roll with it for now, but man, if you keep this up, I don't know.
I was pretty done.
It was also smart when Taiju immediately hugged Senku and almost breaks his back. Like, it's like after he had neck problems that like had put him like in unconscious for that long. Senku brags that his self-sacrificing experiment was a success. Apparently he planned all of this out. And Taiju thinks to himself about how when they were making soap, Senku told him that petrification might be this stone of life that replaces doctors for them. Like a Dr. Stone, perhaps? Yeah.
Go on.
All right, so with healing properties like this, Senku reconsiders whether the petrification was even an attack on humanity at all. Like, maybe it was something else. Maybe somebody was trying to protect humanity or something. Maybe just the world at large. Maybe they're trying to protect the world from humanity. I don't know. Yuzuriha cuts a hide off of some dead animal and then, like, says it looks kind of, like, science-y.
Which isn't a word.
It's not a word. It's apparently Google Docs says, like, fuck you, Bcom. This is not a word. Red underline.
Yep.
And gives it to Senku as part of his a splint for his neck and says, like, oh, maybe it can be our nation's flag one day. And Yuzuriha, afterwards, she's looking at this petrified girl whose arm is cracked off at, like, the elbow. And she wonders, like, if the petrification healing is so powerful, couldn't it just put people back together if it, like, healed and you, like, stuck their arm on? And Senku's like, oh, I kind of tried that at first and it didn't work. But something about what she said spurs this, like, moment of realization for him. And he's like, Yuzuriha, I have a mission for you. It's way too complicated for that idiot Taiju, but you can do this. And so the mission basically involves Yuzu and Taiju are going to become spies for Senku in Tsukasa's empire. Because Senku basically assumes Tsukasa is going to gather young people and build this empire dominated by, like, military might.
I feel like he'd never trust them, though. Like,
yeah, I don't think so
this
either.
would not work.
Like, maybe Yuzu is smart enough to get them into his good graces, like, just saying, like, oh, we have nowhere else to go kind of thing. Like, please forgive us. It was Senku who, like, got us into all this shit. But anyway, in order to fight Tsukasa, Senku's like, I need spies on the inside who will give me the information I need. And he's also going to need to develop technology to combat this, like, army of young guys and girls. And so Senku decides he's going to go off and try to find the people who made those smoke signals that they saw previously and team up with them before they can meet Tsukasa. And so they see each other off, and Yuzu's, like, really surprised by how casually the guys are, like, saying goodbye. She's like, oh, guys are so stoic. And, like, Taiju it takes a few seconds to realize, like, I might not see Senku again for months or years. And then he, like, runs back and, like, starts yelling at him, like, but he was told not to raise his voice because Tsukasa might hear, so he just, like, throws a fist up in the air, and then Senku raises the flag that Yuzu gave him and promises, like, I'm gonna build our kingdom of science.
Kingdom of science.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Senku, the blonde girl who we have been hinted at meeting all along, and we finally meet, but she meets Tsukasa first. And her name is Kohaku, we find out later. And Kohaku is wearing a very revealing tunic with high-heeled sandals. I don't know why you would wear high-heeled sandals.
That is such bullshit. No one... Because we find out late, like, that she's from, like, a race of people who somehow survived and has been around for a while. There's no way they're making high-heeled sandals in the jungle. No.
It's a very weird choice of footwear for this time.
Gotta extenuate those calves, man.
Yeah, she's got
while
legs
you're
for
running
days.
from wild cheetahs or whatever.
So the strategy part of her appearance, I feel like, is that she kind of uses it to take Tsukasa by surprise. She attacks him with 2 daggers and, like, rushes him. And he's impressed, actually. Like, he's able to fight her off, obviously, because he's a beast. But he is impressed by her, like, expertise in martial arts and wonders where she has come from. And Kohaku saw everything Tsukasa did to the others and basically wants to kill him for it. She knows she can't trust him. But the way she talks about, like, how the sorcerer guy used a mysterious black powder that shook the mountain, like, immediately clues Tsukasa in that, like, Kohaku doesn't have knowledge of the world before petrification. So he assumes, like, she's either a child of someone who was petrified and woke up, or she was petrified as a baby and then woke up in this world not knowing what the hell's going on. And so Tsukasa deems, like, Kohaku and whatever people she's with to be primitive and, like, he could easily rule over them, so they're not a threat to him. And he's also in a rush to get back to that miracle fluid before anybody else can, because it's the key to like building his army. And so he just punches Kohaku really hard and then like knocks a tree down on top of her. And so luckily for her, Senku is nearby and sees this tree and like runs over there and like greets Kohaku, sees him and is like, "Oh, it's the sorcerer gentleman." And he's not able to get enough leverage on the tree to lift her up. And so he like has her make a split decision. He's like, "I have some gunpowder. I can like explode this tree, but it'll be risky. But if you can hold out till nightfall, I can 100 billion% get you out of there." And she's like, "All right, I'm fine. My organs and bones are fine. Like, do what you need to do." And so he gets like real big brain. Like super big brain, and he makes this Archimedes style compound pulley system out of like tree branches and like bamboo and shit, and it's just enough pulley like leverage that he can just jump off of a tree branch above him and have that like body weight pull up the whole huge ass tree.
It makes me think of like pirate ships and like big sailing ships with big sails, where
the
like
rigging on the sails.
Where this first system was like really used to its best extent.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
you see that all the time there. Yeah, for sure. And it's also used in like elevators. I think escalators use this type of system as well.
Escalators do.
Yeah, apparently like underneath, like there's a pulley system in some escalators at least. Yeah,
I would feel like that would be a chain system.
It probably is in some, but like, yeah, no, I was reading up on like pulley system and it's like applications today, and it was like, oh, elevators, escalators, and it's all this stuff. Yeah. And so yeah, Kohaku's like, "Oh, I admire how diligently you set yourself on solving that problem. I've taken quite a liking to you, sorcerer guy." And so that's the end of the episode.
I'm really glad to have Kohaku in the show. For whatever reason, she's just been really intriguing to me. I think she's a very interesting character. I've seen little like snippets of like memes with her, and I'm like, oh, I'm really interested to see what they do with this character. I'm also, it came to a surprise to me when they separated Taiju and Yuzihara from Senku, and like I just wonder how long this is going to happen and like how this develops.
Same, yeah. I was kind of surprised by that too.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. I expected them to just stick together, but now that they're apart, yeah, that's very interesting. And yeah, like you, I like that Kohaku's been added. I like that because she has no knowledge of science. So when Senku does cool science stuff, it'll be even crazier for her than like the other two who like...
she'll just be like, "What the fuck are you? You're doing magic tricks. I don't understand."
Exactly.
Basically, yeah.
I'm excited for those reactions.
Something I'm not excited for, but though is somehow ranked number 1.
Okay, so I about shit myself when I saw this. There was a poll. I'm trying to, because I follow several polls on Facebook.
It was from anytrends.net.
Yeah, and I follow several of these pages because I like to keep in touch with like what people are watching most of.
Right.
And Given was number 1 in week like 8 for anime watched, even above the Viking show.
Vinland Saga, God,
yeah,
that's like shocking. So, I am shocked. Like that seems to be a strange poll to me, but whatever.
Well, it hasn't been like that the entire time. I think it's always been within like it's been hovering like 7-ish in the rankings.
I know that there's been a lot of chatter about Given in like the episodes like 8 and 9, I believe. Like, yeah, like there's been a lot of chatter about it.
Yeah, because it's been hovering like before this around like rank 7, rank 8, rank 6. Like it's not been super high, but it's been in the top 10. And so I've had hope for it because it seems like it could go somewhere. And then it like shot up and I was like, "Eat my dirt, bitches." And I like shared it in the chat. And I was like, "Oh, guess whose fucking pick is number 1 this week?" That's right. Like,
oh my God. That's exciting.
And like we're only in week 6, but this was like week 8 or 9, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 8. But yeah, and I was just like, that is right. I picked a good one. You guys picked some bullshit.
All right, tell us why it's good. Get into it. Episode 6, Creep.
Creep.
So this bitch that likes Ritsuka tells him this rumor and then like apologizes like she didn't full well mean to tell him. Like that's some bull crap. And I'm just like, I didn't mean. I'm just thinking to myself like, oh, I didn't mean to. Like, yeah, you didn't mean to do what, you little bitch? Like, of course you meant to. You're trying to drive a wedge between them.
Yeah, you can't walk that
asshole.
back.
Yeah. And you can see Ritsuka kind of like going through in his head what he thinks about this, like how this changes how he feels. He's not sure. And then that guy later, Hiragi, talks to Satou about the guitar that's Yuki's, who Satou used to date. And apparently Yuki's mom gave it to Satou after Yuki died. And apparently both Yuki and Satou's parents approved of their relationship, which is pretty rare in Japan.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That is really rare.
Yeah. And Hiragi is kind of talking to Satou about all this, and he asks if he's seen someone called Sayako since the funeral, and if he's playing guitar because he's trying to be positive, and then he kind of trails off. And I almost wonder what he meant by like but Satou accuses him at this point of criticizing him. And says that he doesn't know why he's doing it. He just feels like it, basically.
Yeah, he doesn't really understand why. I mean, Satou doesn't understand anything about himself, so...
Yeah.
It seems like.
But I also feel like it's interesting that he feels so defensive. Because you find out after this that Hiragi and this other guy that he meets up with after he talks to Satou have been friends since they were children. So you think he wouldn't be so defensive around his childhood friends.
Yeah, this must just be a really sore subject for him. Yeah.
Yeah, or he's just really awkward, which he is. So Hiragi's talking with this guy, and the guy tells him, like, listen, it's really none of your business that Satou's in a band. And Hiragi's kind of like, of course it is. Like, I worry about him. We've been friends for a long time. And it's interesting because they seem to have this very antagonistic relationship in some ways, but obviously Hiragi really does care about him. It's interesting. And then Akihiko later brings Ritsuka a modified version of the song he wrote with drums. And then he comments that Satou's voice is like, oh, it's pretty, but it evokes strong emotions. Like he's screaming without screaming. And of course, Ritsuka's like, right? I don't understand why I like it so much. And it's just like, okay, dude, you're obsessing.
What is Akihiko tells him something? He's like, the way he laughs when Ritsuka says that was really funny. He's like, ho, 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 ho. He's like really unnatural laugh. He's like, I know exactly what's going on with you, but you clearly don't get it.
Yeah. And they suggest that Satou should write lyrics to the song, and Satou's unsure what to write about. And then Haruki suggests writing about past relationships, which is obviously makes it awkward. And yeah. And Haruki later asks why Akihiko was so rough with him when he said that, because he didn't really get the tone or why it was awkward. And Satou says he must have been worried about him. And then he kind of points out what would it feel like if the person you love most disappeared from this world? And it's like it's almost like Satou is getting to the point where he wants to hint about this and talk about it, but he's not there yet.
I liked that moment because like Haruki's like taken aback and he's like, I don't know what I would say. And that's like exactly what Satou's going through. He doesn't know how to. I mean, obviously Satou doesn't know how to express himself in a lot of ways, but especially even a normal person can have trouble like expressing how they feel about someone very close to them passing away, especially through a song. Like a lot of people might feel like it's even disrespectful just to talk about it, and then there are other types of people who need to talk about it and need to get it out there and have they have all the words in the world that they want to say. But Satou is not that type of person. Like he holds all this stuff inside, and I think I finally got for the first time this episode that like he is like a bubbling pot that is like slowly starting to boil over. And I think when he's going to actually like explode, it's going to make for a really interesting, like emotional outburst moment for him, which as I assume what is going to happen in episodes 8 or 9, I assume. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then later, all the guys are trying out for basketball, and Satou is still trying to figure out lyrics to the song. And you see him like flashes of him in his room, even like trying to type lyrics on his phone and kind of typing like Yuki into his phone and deleting it. So he's clearly struggling a lot with this. And just trying to figure out what to even, how he's even going to put this into a song or into words at all. So
Yeah.
it's well done, I would say. And then later, Ritsuka gets invited out for dinner, and I think they try to invite Satou, but he doesn't answer. And then meanwhile, while that's going on, Akihiko goes to get coffee at Haruki's place where he works, and Haruki kind of comments that Satou might have something to say, and he's trying to figure it out. And they have this kind of cute little flirty conversation where Akihiko is like, "I love your coffee," and I'm like, this is interesting. Like, they're flirty, but like almost not. I don't know.
Yeah.
They have an interesting dynamic. And then, so Ritsuka's out bowling and eating with his friends that they invited Satou, and he never answered. And meanwhile, it shows Satou kind of going to the ocean alone and thinking, "I'm not lonely." It's kind of interesting that he chose to be by himself, but like he kind of is lonely, but he's like saying he's not lonely, but he chose to be alone. He's going through a lot of shit, obviously.
Yeah. There's all these like shots of him in this latter part of this episode where he's just like walking all over the place and just like thinking. For some reason, I think it's because I watched like Evangelion recently, and there's like an episode where Shinji like just decides to leave Nerve and like go home, and you just see all these shots of him just like walking alone and just like thinking about all the shit he's been through. And it kind of reminded me of Satou this episode, as he's just like walking alone on the beach and like walking through neighborhoods and stuff. Yeah,
I can see that. Like, this show is becoming more and more like based on just really your thoughts on how they're presenting things and less about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing for an anime. It usually means it's well done, and they're trying to go for more than just the obvious.
Right.
And maybe that's why it's gotten so high in the polls. I'm not sure. I guess we'll see. But yeah, Ritsuka and Satou later hang out on the stairs, and Satou asks if he can talk, and Ritsuka is feeling awkward and so pretends to go to sleep instead. And Satou says that there's someone he really, really loved and that he has something to say. And Ritsuka just thinks to himself like, "Oh, this feeling is jealousy," and that's where the episode ends. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting that even though
Ends.
Satou is, oh fuck you, Leo, is the one that is so awkward emotionally, Ritsuka is the one here who avoided the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, Ritsuka's a little bit of a coward, too.
A little bit.
Pretending to fall asleep there. But yeah. So yeah, the emotions are starting to come out. They're starting to actually talk to each other. We're getting a much better idea of like who Satou is as a person and what drives him. And so now I find this anime to be quite a bit more interesting than I did early on. So it's hitting its stride.
I think
a
it's
bit.
just kind of a slow reveal.
Yeah, it's very, very slow. Like I still think it's too slow, but I see what they're going for at least at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah. Another anime that's not too slow. It's so much fun, but everybody hates
It's
it.
really
The Demon Girl
fucking
Next
mad.
Door.
You are delusional, man.
I'm gonna have fun with this last possible review of this show. Episode 6.
We know you're changing it. Don't lie.
Courage to face the future. The heavy roller won't stop. So yeah, Lilith wakes up Shamiko to tell her that for some reason her magical power is overflowing. And so they can use this opportunity to have a special episode where she invades Momo's mind and controls her every move. To do this, Lilith tells Yuko that she needs to use like a magic mirror. But in order to attune herself with like Momo's signal, she has to build up her dark energy by thinking of evil things Momo has done to her. And as you can expect, Shamiko can't really think of anything bad that Momo has done to her because she always treats her very nicely. But she does think that, like, oh, she throws me off whenever she's around. And so she, like, punches this mirror and, like, tumbles through it and into Momo's mind. But Momo's subconscious is, like, really weird. Like, she's there, but she's, like, a little girl wearing the magical girl outfit. And she's, like, clearly, like, depressed. And her entire mind is just, like, filling up with this, like, purple muck. And Shamiko kind of panics and transforms into her crisis management magical girl form. And, like, they clean up, like, most of her mind. And they clear out all this muck. And it's still, like, a desert underneath the muck. It's, like, really, like, kind of dark. And she gives Momo, like, a Coke to drink. And before she can, like, the whole plan was to plant a seed in Momo's mind so she would, like, give her blood to Shamiko and break the seal. She can't get that done before she, like, gets kicked out of the stream and wakes up. But she meets Momo the next day, and while Momo has, like, an urge to drink Coke that she didn't have before, like, the only other change in her is she's feeling really sick. And so Yuko, like, takes her home, takes care of her, like, helps her recover.
She basically looks like Kat right now.
Yeah, she's got strep throat, you know. She's really suffering. She's soldiering through it, though. But all Momo remembers about that dream is that she kind of felt relieved at the end of it, and there was some exhibitionist girl in there who she didn't recognize. Wasn't wearing a lot of clothing. And so, Yuko gets Momo home to her house, which is, like, big and high-tech, and it has a gate and, like, a security lock, and Yuko's, like, overwhelmed. But once they get inside, it was funny. They meet, like, Momo's cat familiar named Meitako. And apparently Metako used to talk a lot, like a normal magical girl familiar would. But because Momo's, like, not motivated at all anymore, and because the cat is old, like, 97% of the time it's just a cat now, and it just does cat things. But Yuko's like, oh, I want to hear it talk.
It does say stuff. What's that, Bcom?
What? Oh, I thought you were going to say. I thought you were getting excited.
Oh, yeah. So what it does say is the time hath come that Bcom changes lock this season.
The cat says in the, like, stupid deep voice, like, the time hath come. It's just like, what? And, like, Momo's like, don't worry about it. That's all the cat says. I think it's because it's about to die. It's just like, oh no. So yeah, Yuko tries to find some medicine, but ends up opening the refrigerator and finds this, like, disgusting looking Hamburg steak, which apparently Momo was trying to cook for her.
Hamburger.
Because if you remember a couple episodes back, like, Yuko was doing the magic shooting. That was Leo's lolly hamburger voice.
You don't know about the lolly hamburger?
I don't know if Kat knows about this. This used to be a thing.
Oh, Jesus.
Kat's dying. We've killed Kat.
She's going down. Call an ambulance.
Poor Kat.
No, but, like, it's a thing in anime that lollies, there was like, what do you want for dinner? And they're like, I want hamburger steak. They say hamburger steak.
Yep.
And you're like, what?
It's a trope.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like, Momo had tried to make this for her as, like, a reward for, like, using her magic powers and shit. But she's a terrible cook, as we already know. It turned out terrible. But, like, Yuko tries it, and she's like, oh, it didn't cause me to vomit immediately, so it's definitely edible. And, like, the anime warns you, like, this girl has undergone special training in the field of eating terrible food due to her family's poor circumstances.
Yep.
So don't try this at home.
And it's not entertaining at all. But go on. Please go on.
Yes. Yuko decides to invite Momo in the future to come try her family's Hamburg steak, which is not beef, but tofu and chicken breast because they're cheap. And Yuko notices that Momo has a cut on her hand from, like, tripping into the kitchen trying to stop her from seeing this Hamburg steak. And she patches it up and puts a Band-Aid on it. And then she heads home because she wants to cook some udon for Momo to, like, help her, like, through her, like, sickness. But Momo is, like, woken up by her cat, who's like, the time hath come. And she's like, wait, what's wrong?
Time hath come.
And Yuko gets home and she like touches the ancestor statue with Lilith inside. And it starts like glowing and like buzzing. And she's like, what's going on? And Lilith is like, and Momo like actually, even though she's so sick, she goes to Yuko's house because she knows what's happening. And like the tiny amount of blood that Yuko had touched on Momo's cut like was enough to like break the seal that the magical girl, like the Light Clan, had on her family. But it was only like a really tiny amount of blood. So Momo's like, I don't think you're going to get like a ton of powers back or anything, but like the seal has been broken. So your family might start to get powers back. But it seems like the only thing that actually changed is that Lilith can now speak through the ancestor statue, which more than anything is just annoying for Momo. Like it's not a problem or anything. But like she also explains like that one drop of blood that I probably lost is like actually a big deal. It's a lot of magical power. And so she guilt trips Yuko into like helping her defend the city from anybody who might show up who detects that her power has dropped. And like for whatever reason, Momo was like really gung-ho about defending like this city specifically, which is mysterious. But yeah, like that's basically the end of the episode where it's just like, oh, like they've unlocked the seal, and they're gonna help each other like protect the city, I guess. They decide in the end. And now you never have to hear about Demon Girl Next Door ever again. Congratulations. I still think it's cute, but nobody else does. Oh well.
Nobody.
The end.
Cares.
All right, let's not waste any time and just start talking about Carole Tuesday, which we can all three of us agree love. It's just such a fun show.
I hate this show. No, I'm just joking.
That was the biggest lie you've ever told. So, episode 18, Only Love Can Break Your Heart.
Yay.
Neil Young?
Neil Young song, yeah.
So, Ertgun and Tayo, whatever, are arguing about the song they are making. One thinks it's too much, one thinks it's not enough, blah, blah. They finally get interrupted by Dahlia, who has news about Aaron being hit by the car. The self-driving car also shows signs of being hacked, so they believe the hacker did it, and because of that picture, basically because of the picture of Angela and Aaron, he's jealous. Aaron at the hospital also seems to have come to the same connection, and he's like, get away from me, leave, I don't want to be seen with you again. I don't want to be hit by any more autonomous driving fucking cars. And just as they leave, Angela gets a text asking if she's done with that guy yet, and she's like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. And like you see like the guy outside the hospital that they're at. And Tobey finally calls it a wrap for Carole Tuesday for the day, and that's when they find out Hoffner wants to meet them. It turns out he heard their debut song is impressed enough to offer them a spot on the rookie stage at the Sidonia Festival. They end up accepting in the end after a little pushback, blah, blah, blah. Because I remember like beer cans being thrown at them. They're like, that's not going to happen this time.
Yeah.
Later that night, Tuesday,
they quickly try to play hardball with him, and then like he's like, oh, I guess I can find somebody else. They're like, oh no, we'll do it.
Yeah. So later that night, Tuesday tells Carole she might end up meeting up with Kyle, the reporter, tomorrow. Carole wants her to be careful around the reporter because he might be a shady guy, and he also might try to dig up something to make a scandal about Valerie.
Carole is smart.
Yes. But then Tuesday also has other ulterior motives. She wants to meet with him because she has been running away from her mother all her life, and this is a way to start to change that. So Tuesday meets up with Kyle, and she actually has questions for him. So it's like a reverse interview. She wants to know why he got into journalism and if he ever went anywhere not safe. This goes to him saying he's actually been to war zones and he's deaf in his right ear because of a mine that went off. And he says, so if you need to whisper me secrets, you should whisper it into my left ear. And that makes Tuesday blush a little. And then quickly to Jerry and Valerie. are again looking at poll numbers and statistics and all that fun stuff. And Valerie's kind of disappointed about all of it because she's still behind by like 7 points or something. And Jerry tells her not to worry because he hints heavily at doing something behind the scenes and uses a lot of water references. Oh, Jesus. Ripples in the water. And then Tuesday meets up with Kyle, and Kyle tells Tuesday about Jerry and how he will do anything to win an election. He also says her mother's policies started changing strangely after Jerry joined. So, and also that himself, Kyle, was only originally hired to dig up a scandal on her mother, but he kind of got suspicious himself and decided that he should talk to Spencer and Tuesday before he delved deeper into it. So that's a little political stuff there. Mm-hmm. Oh, and he also says he really liked Tuesday's song, and he just wanted to meet her in person.
And she's like, oh my God, I'm so in love.
Yeah. She's like falling in love with him. It's pretty obvious. Mm-hmm. And they kind of finish up their conversation, and she goes to leave, but then there's suddenly an explosion in the distance. And it kind of causes Tuesday to go to a panic attack, and Kyle kind of has to like crouch down next to her and pat her on the back and be like, it's okay. Breathe. You know, do your breathing techniques like you do before you sing and whatnot. And finally kind of gets her to calm down a little bit, which is fine and all. Mm-hmm. And then there's Angela and Dahlia in a self-driving car. I'm just going to put that out there. Self-driving car.
Okay.
We already know what the hacker can do.
Yeah.
And they talk about how they had like the cops search Angela's rooms and they found absolutely no cameras or bugs, but they can't figure out how the hacker is tracking them, even though the show keeps focusing on the stupid camera and the goddamn self-driving car.
We just don't understand.
Even though we figured out the other car was fucking hacked. But anyways, they like basically talk trash about the hacker who is obviously watching this. He then texts Angela and is like, oh, you're going to talk all this trash about me. You don't hate me. I'm your number one fan. Well, fuck you. I'm not going to be your number one fan anymore. So, bye. And then that's just like kind of the end of that. I was like expecting him to like try to kill them in the car, but they didn't do anything with that.
Anything with that at all. Yeah, I was kind of like, okay then.
Yeah, you guys have any like theories on that? I don't know what.
I don't know. Maybe he wants to kill her, or I don't know if he wants to kill her at all. I'm not sure. He's crazy, so I'm not sure what his plan is.
That's a good point. Just he's crazy, so like figuring out his motives are just like kind of pointless. He's fucking crazy. He could be anything.
Yeah, I don't know if he even has a plan. Maybe he's just trying to be an asshole.
Well, I mean, he wants Angela as his own, but then again, he's crazy enough to do all this other stuff, so who knows?
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, she's never going to be comfortable with him.
Right.
So
at this point, we find out it's the weather station that was blown up, which basically controls all the climate on Mars, which causes the temperature to start dropping, which is kind of interesting. Right. And then you get like the Mars World Defense guy on TV, and he says the explosion was caused by anti-Mars activists. And of course, Valerie, the Tuesday's mom, seizes this moment to save the refugees from Earth to help her campaign. Mm-hmm. Intentionally. So, but then next part, I'm not exactly sure what happens. Help me out. This is why I italicized it. She also seems aware that Jerry was probably the one behind the explosion. I'm not sure if she's okay with it or not. And they also need to enlist the help of Tao for some AI reason, which I did not pick up on.
Yeah,
Do you guys know why they picked up on any of this?
He basically was just like, my models predict that we're going to need to do this like one more thing to get us over the hump, and we need Tao to do it. So we don't know exactly what they want to use him for.
But he specializes in music AIs. Like, I don't know how they're going to say that helps.
I don't know. I mean,
but
kind of convenient, I guess. But yeah.
My other question: Do you think Valerie is completely aware of what Jeffrey did?
I think on some level she is. Maybe she's being kind of willingly blind to it, but I think she knows.
I think she knows also, but she's like choosing to ignore it at the same time.
Like she's like choosing to just say like, oh no, that just was very lucky, or something.
Was it though?
And she's, I mean, she's just being like the shitty politician and, you know, taking advantage of this and this horrible thing that's happening, you know. But,
yeah, totally. So Kyle and Tuesday meet again, and Tuesday tells him how her mother was at home and like basically describes how she acted, and then just how the way she's acting as a politician does not match up with how she was at home. She's totally different, which is kind of there to enforce how much the Jeffrey guy is influencing her. Yeah. So, and
Tuesday's like, I think she's suffering, which is an interesting perspective.
Yeah. And so they part from their meeting, and it's like the next day, and Tuesday goes by a gift shop, and she actually sees a gift. She wants to give Kyle. We know she's infatuated with him, and Carole's also picking up on this also, which she comes into later on. And then eventually she goes to meet up with the gift, and she sees him waiting at their usual table, and he has a female with him, and he kisses her, and
it's very
basically
dramatic and
it
sad,
breaks her heart. She runs off. There's snow falling. She's basically just wandering mindlessly through the city, getting wet from the snow. And Carole knows something's up. It's too late for her to be gone. She goes out and goes looking for her. She, after visiting a bunch of like memorable spots we've seen before, she eventually finds her. And when she does, she basically has to hug Tuesday to comfort her because she's crying and whatnot. And what I found really interesting is like she had her umbrella, and the umbrella's like stick part glowed.
Oh yeah, it's lit up. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I liked that. Yeah, it was a cool design.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I also really liked the way Tuesday's hair looked when it got wet from the snow. It was just shaded really nicely. That was really well done too. But yeah.
See, I don't have H-Dive anymore, so I think I got something that didn't portray that as well, because I saw your comment and I watched it and I couldn't really pick up on it. So that's my fault.
One other thing I noticed I thought was interesting, was that when Kyle was talking about what got him into being a journalist, he mentioned like, oh, back in the day, I read these books by this journalist named Kappa. And who he's referring to is Robert Kappa, who is like probably most well known for being the only photographer or civilian photographer who landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day and took like these stunning photos of like the D-Day invasion. Among like many other war photos that he took around that time period and like several wars surrounding World War II. And he was like awarded a Medal of Freedom by Dwight D. Eisenhower for these pictures that he took. And I would highly recommend seeking out like Robert Kappa's like photos online, like galleries of his photos, because they all tell like incredible stories, like every single one of them. Like they're just incredible photos. Like he was a really talented photographer. So if you're going to base your like photography or photojournalism career off somebody, Robert Kappa is a good person to do that with.
Well, they reference a lot of people in this show. I mean, really, especially music wise. But now that this one is a journalist, so that's really interesting.
It is one of the weird things about the show that this is set like sometime in the future, but all of the references are from like the 20th century, or the early 21st century. It's a little bit strange, but you know, it's just how it is. So
yeah, it was a little strange, but not.
Yep. All right, that is all the anime for this week. I think we could just jump right in to the final section if you guys are ready.
Oh, mid-season cuts? Let's go for it.
Yeah, we got mid-season cuts. Mid-season cuts are when we feel we want to replace any of the shows that we're currently watching because it's mid-season and we make mistakes.
We're not perfect.
Yeah. Some seasons we don't make any mistakes. This season we made many mistakes.
I feel like we should have like a drop here, like with that song, like I made my mistake.
Actually, quite a couple of the viewers made comments about how disastrous our locks were, and they found
Yup.
it very entertaining.
It was fun. I enjoyed reading through all of the feedback, and there were lots of
People
different
have
suggestions
fits about it at me, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Listen, it is what it is."
There was a lot, but there was also a lot that were the same at the same time.
Yeah, so like we always say, like our locks can only be cut by the person who locked the lock. That's why they are called locks. But any other show requires like a 2-person majority to cut it if it was just like a consensus show. So yeah, before we get into cuts,
Have we
should...
never made? I don't think we've ever made a consensus cut.
Good question.
You and me might have.
I feel like we might have
in the first half, but not since we've been a 3-man team.
It's hard to cut a 3-man lock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or two-man and 1-woman lock, as it were. So yeah, let's talk about the things we have been watching before we get into what we're potentially going to cut. I've been watching Astro Lost in Space.
Same.
That show is bananas.
Yep.
It's
completely
I haven't
bananas.
been watching that, but I've heard it's good.
It is
Entertaining.
Something. It is so
Well,
entertaining.
I would just say entertaining. We'll keep it at that.
Oh man, it
Okay.
goes places that are nuts, and so it will be really fun to talk about it if one of us picks that up. Not much else to need to say. Like if we do cover it, we'll talk a lot about it. But I've also, of course, been watching Vinland Saga, which like barely didn't make it into the consensus picks. And then, of course, we cut it because we're idiots. It's really good. It's just a very quality story. Like I initially was like a little bit like bored with it because it was like kind of slow out the gate. But once they got past all of like the backstory and got into the newer stuff, I've been more interested as Thorfinn is sort of starting to become everything that Tors didn't want him to be. Kind of like a killing machine of a guy as he tries to get revenge. And so, yeah, that's been fun to watch. Like just the personalities in that show of like Askeladd and everybody. It's really interesting to watch those guys. So that's another option. I watched a bunch of Fire Force. I got caught up on that. I hate that show. It is fucking terrible.
I got caught up, but also it's visually beautiful, but god damn, fuck everything else about it.
Yeah, it's never as pretty as it was in the first episode, though, but it is still pretty to look at. But man, there's like one episode with like Tamaki, who's like the cat girl, where everything they do with her is just the most cringeworthy thing ever.
That is like you are taking the fan service way too far. Just
yeah, it's rough. It's just
dude,
real
if they
rough.
cut out if they like the moment I see the fan service, I just cannot focus on the rest of the episode. But if they would just not do that fan service, I would be really happy with the show.
Yeah, I generally think the show's okay outside of that stuff. I mean, it's not great, but it's not like Demon Slayer or anything. But it's like interesting enough. But man, like that episode was so bad because like Tamaki's getting beat up.
In Fire Force, if they did that in Demon Slayer, I would be done with Demon Slayer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it ruins any show. Like because it's just
episode
so
3.
shitty.
It's just literally the first minute, hands on her ass and tits, and I'm just like, I don't know about this show anymore, guys. We need to watch something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always a disqualifier, but like if there's too much of it, then it just becomes gratuitous.
It seems so out of the just fucking nowhere suddenly to me. Also,
to me,
they
it wasn't
tried to
even
be
that.
serious.
That's not what I cared about with Fire Force. It's just the plot. There's no consistency with the plot. Like I don't even care what's happening when I watch that show now. I just watch it and I'm like, okay, I don't really get how this pertains. Like it feels like the plot is all over the place. I'm not having a cohesive thread.
I don't know. I feel like there's like a loose structure in that.
There's a loose structure, but there's not a good plot.
So far they're sort of just meeting all of the different like fire stations that have various like influences behind them, and I'm
just not.
I don't
super
know. I agree
with
that it could be a lot better. Yeah. I watched a little bit more of Granbelm. It was more Granbelm. It was fine, but I don't think it's anything I want to pick up.
Nick, that was actually your number one for a hot second.
It started out with a great 2-episode thing there, and then it's been fine. Like, it's been pretty good, but I have other shows that I have before it. I watched some more Lord El Malloy's Case Files. It is still very much a show you need to have seen Fate Zero for, but I still think it's good. I enjoy watching that show. It's fun.
If you know the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Fruits Basket has been really good. Okay.
Really?
It has
I
been
caught
amazing.
up a little bit on that too. Yeah.
I think it's gotten much better. Just FYI. So.
That's cool.
Okay.
Now you're afraid, aren't you?
Okay,
well,
so
one more thing, Leo. I watched a bunch of Dan Machi, and it's not good. This season has been way more boring than the first
what's
season.
Don Machi?
It's like is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?
Oh, okay.
Season 2.
It's
I am not
pointless.
liking this season.
It's very fancy.
All right.
Heavy.
So, to be fair, going in the same order as the locks started, it's Bcom, me, and then Kat. So, Bcom, are you changing your lock?
I am going to change my lock, but I would like to know if you're going to change your lock before I choose a show.
I cannot and will not tell you.
Oh, come
Because
on.
that's how locks work.
Can work together.
I kind of want to do this with you because I wanted to know okay, I feel like if we're going to change our locks, one of us is going to pick up Vinland Saga and one of us is going to pick up Astra. And I want to give you the option to choose whichever one you want. Because I'm nice.
See, you don't have to be so guarded, Leo. He's a nice guy. He
No,
won't
this is
fuck
how
with
I
you.
like it. This is how we're going to do locks. We're not changing any
So
rules.
Leo is committed to only antagonism. This is how I like the world. Only angry, no niceness. Is that what I'm hearing, Leo?
Maybe I want to still try a bit of manipulation. You never know.
All right.
Leo.
So it's Bcom.
In that case, I will pick up Vinland Saga. Because I need to make sure that Leo's not a fucking idiot.
Why is Leo? You gotta ruin it. We can all work together. We can make this podcast world a better place. But instead, you gotta be on your own little fucking island over there, Leo.
All right,
I'm
so
not even gonna
Bcom, you
respond to
fucked up.
you. Fuck
you
you,
picked
then.
up Vinland Saga.
Yeah.
If you guys didn't hear that, Bcom fucked up. He picked up Vinland Saga, which is
He
what I
fucked
was
up?
going to do.
What do you mean?
That's what
See,
I was
Leo,
going to pick up.
this could be easily avoided. I want to pick up Astra. That's
You're
all I
such
want
an
to do is
idiot.
pick up Astra. So why don't we just do
Leo.
that?
Why didn't you pick up Astra in the first place?
Because I needed to
asked you
make
if you
sure
were
that Vinland Saga got picked up. And because I needed...
he asked you. He
Yeah.
asked you, Leo, if you were going to pick up Vinland Saga so he could pick up Astra. And you had to be stubborn as a fucking little bitch. I love how you're I'm not going to be of help at
Well,
all.
if you guys
and then when
knew
he
the truth,
does,
I'm still going to pick up Astra. So fuck off.
Okay, fine. That works too. I'm happy with
I was
that.
gonna, I was gonna pick up Vinland because I thought you were gonna do Astra, but then
mean-
as you switch it, I was like, I think I'm
my
going to enjoy
God.
doing Astra better than just locking Vinland because sometimes locking stuff kind of ruins it for me because I'm trying to pay extra attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
get that.
I think I'll be fine with Vinland because Vinland's just so fucking crazy. That's just what the fuck are they gonna do next? I think I'll be fine.
So I'm actually kind of happy with this because I think that locking Vinland might get me into the show more because I'm kind of the opposite where if I lock something, I often get way deeper into it than I was before. And I've been having some trouble getting into Vinland. So I'm going to take this opportunity.
Oh,
to
really?
get into
I'm
it.
really,
Yeah.
and I've read a bunch of Vinland. I haven't read it all, but I've read a bunch of it. So
I think this works well with your styles of covering shows too, because Vinland is very heavy, and so Bcom is very detail oriented, and this will work out well.
Yeah,
Whereas
and-
Astra is not as detail oriented.
Leo gets to do the synopses of Astra where I'm just going to be laughing in the fucking background the entire time.
and
It's so
constantly
good.
interrupting me.
Yeah, just constantly interrupting. Can you believe this? Oh my god. Anyway, so Kat, are you dropping your show?
See, I really like Fruits Basket, and like part of me does want to cover it.
Oh shit, I have a lot to catch up on then.
I mean, it's up to you. Like, I'm happy with either sticking with Given or picking up Fruits Basket. Like, I'm happy with both of those.
But I also know that
hate
Fruits
both
Basket
those.
is going to be like 50-something episodes long.
True.
And there's no way we're going to keep it that entire time because, like, there's just going to be other shows.
Yeah, but like I said, I'm not caught up on Fruit Baskets. Maybe I do like it more, but I don't. At the moment, no.
Well, there's no way we're going to keep it for 50 episodes with that attitude.
Well, I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think we would ever keep a show for 50 episodes. We had trouble keeping JoJo, and how long was that?
39.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
I mean, that was
I felt like we had perfect. We kept up with it fine.
well, but there were some moments where we were not sure we
You.
were going to keep
You.
doing
Well,
it.
me too. Me too.
Yeah, let's be honest. Everyone but you, Leo.
I was
all
on
right?
board the whole time. Yeah, but because I was the most familiar with JoJo, so I'm like, don't worry about this part. It'll be fine.
I mean, was it though? Was
Yes.
it, Leo?
Yes.
That ended.
Yes.
I don't know. I just don't. If I knew that we would keep covering it for the entire time,
Well,
would
if
be-
it's gotten really good, there's a chance. I don't know. It depends. Okay, it's like, ask yourself, which show do you believe in more right now? Do you believe in Given more, or do you believe in Fruits Basket more? And that's really the best way to answer that, I feel like.
well, I mean, of the two, I like Fruits Basket more as a show, but part of me thinks I should keep Given just because it has risen so high in the rankings. And I know a lot of people probably think that like that's insane that it has, but it did, and like that has to be for some reason. And there aren't very many yaois that get anywhere near that popular.
Think about this, Leo. We might get to hear Mafuyu sing again.
I heard that actually supposedly got good.
Yeah, me too, and I want to see what the fuck that's about.
And like that actually intrigued. Like I was like, it did? And like I wanted to listen to it, but I still haven't like clicked that link.
Yeah, me neither. Like, I clicked it for like 2 seconds, and I was like, okay, I've seen enough. I'll get to this.
Yeah, and we've already broken with Fruits Basket, which kind of sucks.
Give it.
Shut up. Shut your fucking mouth. I'm
Oh
just,
my
what I'm going to do. You know what, Leo? Do you want me to drive over there and hit you? God damn it.
Please do.
so-
It'll make my day.
Oh,
She's sick.
okay.
Don't make her do that. She's sick.
So instead, I'm just going to encourage everyone to keep watching Fruits Basket because I think it's very good, and you should definitely give it another shot if you gave up on it. And I'm going to just keep my lock.
All right. Bold move.
Sounds good. Any other commentaries from either of you?
I'm happy that you dropped Bam. That's my call. I'm so relieved.
Dude, I was the way you were talking to us, the other people aren't privy to this from our private chats, but it sounded like you were dropping yours and you were 100% dropping up Lost in Space.
Yeah, that
And
was my
so-
initial plan.
And I had committed myself to picking up Vinland Saga. So when you switched it on me just now, it's just like, what the fuck?
Well, I had no indication that you were going to pick up Vinland Saga, so I was like, I can't. I've been stressing out like all week.
I was personally refraining from giving a single opinion about either liking or not liking BIM to let you know if I was dropping it or not. But like, no, I'll be honest. It was like probably episode 3, I was still committed. Episode 4, I was probably like, I'm probably gonna put Vinland Saga in here because then I just caught up to Vinland Saga episode 6, and I was like, we really need to cover this way more than BIM. even though I like BIM,
Yeah.
the Vinland Saga, we need to cover it more. So then just now when you switched it on me, I was like, what the fuck? and then like I really had to rationalize in my head. I'm like I'd already committed to like, all right, I can do the synopsis for Vinland Saga. That's okay. But then when you switch it now, I'm like, oh shit, can I do the synopsis for Lost in Space? And I was like,
You could do it.
it's crazy enough.
It'll be fine.
it won't bother me too much. You don't really have to worry about the technicalities of it. So I'm just like, because it's just like a lot of it's just like bullshit sci-fi stuff. So I'm like,
Yep.
oh yeah, I'm like, I'll be cool with this. So
Yeah,
you got lucky on that part.
That show is going to be really fun. Yeah, to talk about. I can't. I'm very much looking forward to that. So
All right. If you guys have nothing else to say, we thank everybody for liking and listening. Remember to I'm sorry. Thank you for listening. Remember to like,
you fucked
follow.
up on that.
There's all these words on my screen. I don't know what they mean. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcast videos. You can also find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. And follow us on Twitter at Nerdom for updates as well. Also, definitely come hang out on our Discord. We're actually getting ready to do, hopefully Bcom will get this out in time. We're going to a watch party for Hot Rod, which is one of my favorite videos that neither of my co-hosts have seen.
What
which is
the fuck this is going to be?
It's a comedy. It's hilarious. Andy Samberg, awesome. So with all that, we'll see you everybody next time.
see you next week.
Bye.